Standing in the heart of Peru's Pisco Desert today, one is met only by a desolate, lifeless expanse. It is a land defined by suffocating dust, a brutal, relentless sun, and an eerie, absolute silence. Truly, the terrain feels more akin to the Martian surface than our own home planet. Yet, geology functions as a temporal portal, and beneath your boots, layers of sedimentary rock conceal a wet, violent legacy. Let us wind back the clock 12 million years to the Miocene epoch. We must erase this arid desert entirely, replacing it with a vast, dark, and churning ocean. This was no ordinary sea. Rather, it served as the most opulent yet perilous environment in the ancient world. Paleontologists frequently refer to the Pisco Formation as a graveyard of monsters. Having excavated countless remains there over the decades, including giant penguins, marine sloths, and thousands of sharks. However, in 2008, a startling discovery fundamentally altered our perception of this ecosystem. A massive skull, jutting out from the shifting sands, was chanced upon by Klaus Post, a researcher representing the Rotterdam Natural History Museum. Measuring 3 meters in length, the skull initially led experts to suspect they had found a gargantuan baleen whale. Yet, as the surrounding rock was painstakingly cleared away, their shock was palpable. This creature possessed teeth. These were not the diminutive fangs used by modern sperm whales to snare squid. Instead, they were thick, conical pillars of ivory, some as large as 2-liter soda bottles. The most massive specimen reached 36 centimeters in length, with a diameter of 12 centimeters. To provide some perspective, these constitute the largest predatory teeth ever documented in Earth's history, surpassing those of T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, and certainly any shark known to man. Scientists realized that they were observing a previously unknown species of titan. A name befitting the terror it instilled was mandatory, and thus Livyatan MELVILLEI was christened. Livyatan draws from the biblical sea monster Leviathan, while MELVILLEI honors Herman Melville, the visionary author of Moby Dick. It is a fitting moniker, a monster birthed from myth and literature, yet constructed of cold flesh and bone. Nevertheless, the arrival of Livyatan presents a significant conundrum for our understanding of the Miocene Ocean, a dilemma labeled the apex paradox by the scientific community. Typically, every ecosystem in nature is governed by a singular, absolute sovereign. In the African savanna, the lion reigns. In the Indian jungle, the tiger holds dominion. And in Cretaceous North America, the T-Rex faced no peer. The throne of nature rarely accommodates 2 occupants. Yet, the Pisco rock strata reveal that while Livyatan prowled these depths, another titan also patrolled the same waters, Carcharodon's Megalodon. This 50-ton supershark was long believed to be the ocean's sole ruler during that period. Because fossils of both predators were recovered from the same sedimentary layers in the same geographic location, we know that 12 million years ago, the Peruvian Sea stood as the only place on Earth where 2 superpredators of equal mass and ferocity coexisted. This was no peaceful alliance. It was a Cold War. 2 superpowers, 1 primary food source, and a finite stretch of sea. How did the Megalodon, nature's quintessential killing machine, tolerate the presence of a rival whale? Or, in truth, were they actively hunting one another? To resolve this mystery, one cannot merely examine the teeth. We must analyze the banquet nature provided for them. Why did they attain such massive proportions? Gigantic scale is never an accident. Sustaining a 50-ton body requires an astronomical expenditure of energy. A Megalodon cannot be nourished by mere sardines, nor can a Livyatan be satisfied by tiny shrimp. To foster such giant monsters, a massive, reliable food supply is essential. During the Miocene epoch, the Earth was undergoing a period of profound and dramatic climate change as the planet underwent a gradual cooling. The expansion of Antarctic ice caps fundamentally altered global ocean currents. This transformation ignited a crucial geological process known as upwelling. Along the Peruvian coastline, where the Pisco Desert now sits, powerful winds drove surface waters away from the shore, compelling cold, nutrient-dense water from the abyss to rise and take their place. This current functioned essentially as a growth stimulant for the entire marine ecosystem. Billions of tons of plankton were nourished by these waters, which in turn supported small fish. Those small fish sustained larger ones. Most significantly, this fostered an explosion in the whale population. It was the golden era for medium-sized baleen whales, epitomized by Pseudotherium. Though they were relatively gentle, slow-moving creatures typically only 4 to 6 meters long. A far cry from the modern blue whale, they possessed the one asset every predator craved: blubber to survive the increasingly frigid Miocene seas. Whales were forced by nature to evolve thick layers of fat for heat retention. Biologically speaking, whale blubber represents the most concentrated energy source in the natural world. Pseudotherium was not merely prey. It was a colossal biological battery, packed with millions of calories. The overwhelming abundance of these mobile energy packets ignited the most savage evolutionary arms race in the annals of marine history. The rule was simple: when prey evolves to be massive and nutrient-packed, predators are forced to increase in size to secure them. The ancestors of the Megalodon began to bulk up accordingly. Evolving from 6-meter sharks, they transformed into 15-meter titans, capable of crushing whale ribs and biting through dense blubber. Yet the race did not conclude with the sharks. A branch of toothed whales, known as odontocetes, the ancestors of today's sperm whales, also joined the feast. Rather than diving into the deep for squid, this group realized, why venture into the abyss when thousands of fatty whales are swimming right at the surface? Thus the Livyatan emerged. It did not evolve to consume microorganisms. It was designed to hunt other whales. To maintain a competitive edge, it developed a body size rivaling the Megalodon, alongside massive jaws built for tearing prey apart. Imagine the Miocene seas as a chessboard where the pawns all weigh 5 tons and the kings and queens reach 50 tons. The nutrient-rich environment effectively discarded all limits on size, yet it simultaneously forged a deadly paradox. Survival demanded giantism, but as a giant, you are enslaved to constant feeding. Both Megalodon and Livyatan were trapped in a life or death cycle, eat or perish. While food remained plentiful, they could afford to ignore one another. However, whenever a whale was wounded or resources grew scarce, the distinction between a predator and a mere competitor vanished. The stage is set. The motive is clear, and it is finally time to dissect the armory of each gladiator. We shall begin with the one whose very name is synonymous with terror, the most flawless killing machine ever conceived by nature: the Megalodon. When Megalodon is discussed in pop culture, a false, magnified image of a great white shark is often projected into our minds. Modern science, however, rejects this as an insult to the Megalodon. Genealogical tree analysis and examinations of fossilized vertebrae reveal that the Megalodon belongs to an entirely distinct lineage, the Odontidae, or megatoothed sharks. If the great white is an agile, sleek sports car, the Megalodon is a lumbering, armored bulldozer. Its form was not gracefully elongated, but instead stocky, thick-set, and intensely muscular. With an estimated length of 15 to 18 meters and a weight hitting 50 tons, the Megalodon was 20 times more massive than the largest great white alive today. To power such an immense muscular frame, a constant fuel source was required. To refuel, it utilized the most formidable food processing toolkit in Earth's history. Observe its maw. The jaws of the Megalodon could gape up to 2.7 meters in height and 3.4 meters in width. It was wide enough that two men could stand side by side inside without the teeth even making contact. Yet, it did not swallow its quarry whole like a blue whale. It tore them to pieces. Recent computer simulations indicate that the Megalodon possessed a bite force ranging from 40,000 to 108,000 psi. For context, a lion bites with a force of roughly 650 pounds per square inch. The saltwater crocodile, our current champion, reaches 3,700 pounds per square inch. The Megalodon bit with a force 10 times greater than that of any living predator. With such crushing power, a whale's skull was no longer perceived as bone. It was as fragile as a grape. Finding weak spots on its target was unnecessary for this Megalodon. Whatever it clamped onto instantly became a vulnerable point. Yet the bite force was merely one half of the equation. The remaining half was found in the specialized architecture of its teeth. Because its prey did not consist of slippery, small fish, those teeth were never meant to be needle-sharp. Rather, they were broad, thick, and triangular. Most crucially, every edge featured extremely fine serrations, much like the blade of a steak knife. This anatomical feature served a singular purpose, sawing through bone and severing flesh. When the Megalodon would strike and violently thrash its head, those teeth functioned as a biological, meat-powered chainsaw. Tendons, thick blubber, muscle, and even the hardest bone were sliced through with ease. This is not mere conjecture. We have been provided with forensic proof. Across the globe, from the coastlines of Peru to North America, researchers have recovered a multitude of ribs and vertebrae belonging to ancient whales like Piscobalena and Psittatherium. The unmistakable signature of the shark's serrated teeth, deep, parallel gouges, is etched into these fossilized remains. Many whale rib specimens were severed entirely, confirming the catastrophic force exerted as the shark tore through the rib cage. By analyzing these injuries, the brutal hunting strategies of the Megalodon have been reconstructed. Unlike modern great whites, which frequently target the soft underbellies of seals, the Megalodon opted for a more aggressive, disabling strike. When engaging smaller, agile whales, explosive speed was utilized to ram directly into the prey's midsection. A high-speed impact from a 50-ton object was sufficient to shatter the victim's spine, lungs, and heart instantly. If the target was of a larger size, the shark would focus on the propulsion system, crushing the flippers or the tail fluke. Once stripped of its mobility, the whale was reduced to little more than a drifting slab of meat. Consequently, the Megalodon would feast at its leisure, facing zero threat of retaliation. However, such biological perfection demanded a steep price. Unlike the majority of fish, the Megalodon was not purely cold-blooded. Studies of oxygen isotopes within its tooth enamel suggest the shark was capable of regional endothermy or mesothermy. Its eyes and stomach in particular could be maintained at a higher temperature than the surrounding seawater. This provided a biological Ferrari, allowing the predator to digest at high speeds, hunt efficiently in frigid depths, and maintain superior swimming velocity. Yet, like any supercar, it consumed fuel at an exorbitant rate. The metabolic requirements of the Megalodon were terrifyingly high. Nearly 100,000 calories were needed daily by an adult to sustain itself, the equivalent of devouring a large dolphin every day, without pause. It was locked in an endless, high-stakes cycle: eat, hunt, repeat. While hunger acted as a powerful motivator, it also stood as the creature's fatal weakness. Should the food supply shift, the Megalodon would be the first to suffer. Unfortunately for the shark, the Pliocene oceans 12 million years ago were shared with another ravenous power. This opponent did not possess the shark's bite force, but it wielded a weapon the shark could never acquire: a brain. Engineered for tactical intelligence. It is time to reveal the ocean's second card, Livyatan. If your fear of the Megalodon stems from what you see: a massive jaw overflowing with teeth. Then Livyatan. MELVILLEI represents an entirely different breed of terror. It is the fear of an adversary who is smarter than you, who hunts in packs, and who detects your presence in the dark. To properly grasp Livyatan, you must discard the image of the modern sperm whale. While today's sperm whales are gentle titans that dive deep to suction feed on squid, their skulls have regressed, their upper teeth have disappeared, and their remaining lower teeth have become small and vestigial. Livyatan, by contrast, is the warfare version of that lineage, an ancestor from an era before whales had learned to retreat. First, consider its jaws truly, the jaws of the devil. Unlike its descendants, Livyatan carried a full complement of 40 teeth across both the upper and lower jaws. These were not meant for mastication, but were instead ivory and enamel mirroring bollards. As previously noted, the largest reached 36 centimeters in length and 12 centimeters in diameter, setting an absolute record in the animal kingdom. Comparing the mechanics is simple. While the Megalodon's flat, knife-like teeth were designed for slicing, the conical, massive, rivet-like teeth of Livyatan were built to pierce and secure a hold. The hunting style was distinct. There was no strike and retreat, waiting for the prey to expire. Instead, Livyatan would lunge, sink those 40 giant teeth into the opponent, lock onto the target, and employ its immense muscular power to crush the prey or drag it into the depths. Reaching an estimated length of 13.5 to 17.5 meters. Rivaling the Megalodon, Livyatan possessed the power to clash with any entity in the sea. But physical might was merely the exterior. Its true, hidden weapon resided within its massive, boxy head, which comprised a third of its total body length, a sophisticated biological sonar, or echolocation. Embedded within the skull of the Livyatan exists a gargantuan, basin-like cavity known as the supracranial basin. During its life, this recess was packed with spermaceti, a liquid waxy oil. Far from being a mere fat reserve, this substance functioned as a biological acoustic lens. Sound was generated by a system of monkey lips positioned near the blowhole, which was then transmitted through that waxy mass, amplified and focused into a concentrated, high-powered beam of sound waves directed ahead. When those pulses struck a target, they would bounce back, entering the lower jaw and traveling to the internal ear, because sound traverses water 4 times faster than air. This sonar system permitted the Leviathan to perceive its environment in ways the Megalodon could never have comprehended. While the shark relied on its sense of smell, the metallic tongue of blood, and the ampulla of Lorenzini, those electroreceptive organs designed for detecting prey at close to medium range. The Livyathan's sonar functioned like a long-range radar array. It could detect a rival shark or another whale from kilometers away, even in the absolute pitch black of night or in murky, sediment-filled waters. Furthermore, because sound waves don't simply ricochet off skin, but instead penetrate flesh to bounce off bone, the Livyatan did more than just sense an object's presence. It discerned the exact internal architecture of its adversary. It could see the cartilaginous skeleton of the Megalodon and pinpoint its vital weaknesses. In any confrontation, the side that detects its opponent first holds a 90% advantage. And in the Miocene seas, the Livyatan almost always possessed that crucial first-look capability. A third advantage was the intelligence afforded by its social structure. While we must infer this through phylogenetic bracketing, the behavior of modern relatives, the reliability of such conclusions is exceptionally high. Orcas and today's sperm whales are both deeply social beings. They inhabit family pods, typically governed by a female-led matriarchy. They communicate via their own coda languages, instruct their calves in hunting techniques, and most crucially, coordinate complex combat maneuvers. The brain-to-body mass ratio or encephalization quotient, of toothed whales vastly exceeds that of sharks. If the Megalodon was essentially a lone tank operating on rudimentary, predatory instinct, then the Livyatan was a tactical unit of special forces equipped with radio headsets. Visualize the scenario. The Megalodon is a solitary hunter, an undisputed master of the one-on-one duel. Conversely, the Livyatan never roamed alone. Upon identifying a threat, they could communicate and partition their formation. One might draw the enemy's focus, while the rest struck from the blind spots. Intelligence granted them the ability not just to react to their prey, but to anticipate them. Some researchers even hypothesize a secondary role for that spermaceti organ. Given the rigid, massive structure of its skull, it is possible the Livyatan utilized its head as a battering ram in clashes against rivals or enemies. A high-speed impact from a multi-ton cranium filled with non-compressible fluid would generate a devastating shockwave. If this theory holds, the Livyatan didn't just bite. It could potentially pulverize an opponent's internal organs with a single cranial strike. In summary, the Livyatan MELVILLEI represented the perfect marriage of a T-Rex's raw, muscular force and mammalian cognitive complexity. It possessed the massive scale and more terrifying dentition of the Megalodon, augmented by long-range radar and loyal teammates. The shark had dominated the oceans for 10 million years before the whale appeared. But with the arrival of this new titan, the equilibrium was shattered. Suddenly, the Miocene Sea became overcrowded. Two monarchs could not occupy the same throne, and when hostilities erupted, it wasn't just a squabble between two creatures. It was a total war between two distinct evolutionary paths: cartilage versus bone, instinct versus intellect, shark versus whale. What happens when two locomotives collide in the middle of the deep sea? Typically, apex predators in nature prioritize avoidance. A tiger, for instance, will steer clear of a bear unless forced into a corner, simply because the cost of winning a shattered leg or a septic wound is equivalent to a death sentence. But in the Pisco seas 12 million years ago, both the Megalodon and the Livyatan were trapped in a high-density zone. They converged here to mate and rear their young. To a Megalodon, a juvenile Livyatan roughly 5 to 6 meters long was merely a soft, defenseless protein snack. To an adult Livyatan, the Megalodon was a direct threat to its lineage's survival. Conflict was unavoidable. But when two 50-ton behemoths clash, what is the outcome? While science cannot provide slow-motion footage, biomechanics offer a likely reconstruction. Instinct dictates that the Megalodon strikes first. It cannot engage the Livyatan's formidable jaws head-on, where the whale's most lethal weaponry is focused. Instead, the shark utilizes its greatest tactical asset, the ability to vanish into the deep. Its dark gray dorsal side camouflages perfectly with the abyss's shadows a form of countershading. It would stealthily stalk a stray or geriatric Livyatan, waiting for the perfect moment to execute its ambush. The shark dives deep, slipping into the blind spot where a whale's vision cannot reach. Even though Livyatan is equipped with advanced sonar, that system is primarily geared towards scanning the terrain ahead and around. Consequently, the region directly beneath its belly remains a permanent vulnerability. Launching an explosive burst of speed, the Megalodon makes its move. Its massive tail thrashes with violent intensity, propelling a 50-ton body upward like a ballistic missile. The shark does not aim for the head. Instead, it targets the belly or the tail fluke. With bone-pulverizing force, the first bite is meant to be decisive, designed specifically to disable the whale's engine. Should the tail be severed, Livyatan's mobility is instantly erased, effectively ending the conflict before it has truly begun. However, Livyatan was no passive filter-feeding baleen whale. It was a battle-hardened warrior. If the Megalodon's strike missed its vital mark, or if the whale's sonar detected the shifting water pressure moments before impact, a fierce counterattack would be unleashed. At this juncture, the disparity in skeletal composition would dictate the victor. Because the Megalodon is a cartilaginous fish, its frame, while flexible, is significantly softer than true bone. Conversely, Livyatan is a mammal, possessing a rock-hard skeleton, most notably its massive 3-meter-long skull, possessing a range of motion impossible for sharks. Livyatan could rotate its body axis with fluid agility. As it pivoted to confront the enemy, its wax-filled cranium was transformed into a terrifying, blunt weapon, the ram. Visualize a multi-ton block of reinforced concrete slamming into the side of a vehicle. If Livyatan rammed directly into the shark's soft underbelly or its gill slits, the impact would trigger catastrophic internal trauma. A shark's cartilage could be shattered, its gills torn, or its liver, the largest organ in its abdomen, crushed. A well-placed ram was capable of killing a Megalodon instantly through internal shock. Should the engagement devolve into close-quarters combat, Livyatan would deploy its jaw, lined with 40 peg-like teeth. Where the Megalodon bites to slice flesh with serrated edges, Livyatan bites to break and crush. If the whale managed to latch onto the shark's pectoral fin, it would execute a death roll, a technique seen in modern killer whales and crocodiles. Utilizing the superior muscular strength and sheer mass of a mammal, the whale could rip the shark's pectoral fin clean off. Deprived of that fin, the shark would lose its ability to stabilize, falling into a state of tonic immobility, a temporary paralysis. It would be transformed into a helpless punching bag for the whale to finish off. Yet, the most nightmarish scenario for a Megalodon was not the one-on-one duel. It was the realization that the target it had ambushed was not alone. Underwater, a whale's distress signal carries for vast distances. Within mere minutes, a Megalodon could find itself encircled by 3, 4, or even 5 adult Livyatan. Suddenly, the roles were entirely reversed. This is a tactic frequently observed in modern orcas when they hunt great white sharks. They coordinate, corner, and strike relentlessly from every angle. One Livyatan serves as a distraction, another slants into the flank, and a third latches on to the tail. No matter how powerful the Megalodon may be, it cannot defend itself from a 360-degree assault. It would be quite literally torn to shreds. The fossil record at Pisco supports this, as many whale bones have been recovered, bearing bite marks that had clearly healed. This serves as definitive proof that these whales were not only attacked by Megalodon, but had the resilience to survive and continue the fight. What provided their salvation? In all likelihood, it was the support of their own kind. During a fleeting, sudden skirmish in the deep, the Megalodon held a 60% probability of victory, courtesy of its catastrophic initial strike. However, should the struggle drag on, or if a pod became involved, the Livyatan was almost certain to prevail, thanks to its superior intellect, stamina, and ability to coordinate. This was never a contest between morality and villainy. Rather, the Megalodon stood as the zenith of mechanical evolution, efficient, unadorned, and lethal, whereas the Livyatan represented the absolute peak of cognitive advancement, complex, social, and tactical. 12 million years ago, these two summits collided within the Pisco waters, and the Pacific Ocean was stained crimson by their struggle. Yet the eventual victor of this conflict was not determined by raw strength. Instead, triumph belonged to the creature that could best withstand a transforming world. This war between rival monarchs did not conclude with a thunderous finale, but rather with a frigid, climatic sigh. The true antagonist that finalized the era of both the Megalodon and the Livyatan was not the bite of an adversary, but the shifting climate. Roughly 3.6 million years ago, as the Pliocene epoch waned, the planet experienced a sudden plunge in temperature. Polar ice sheets surged, forcing sea levels to retreat and effectively obliterating those vital, nutrient-dense upwelling zones. To survive, their primary food sources, the various baleen whale species, fled toward the freezing polar regions. Here lay the lethal snare. Despite the fact that the Megalodon and the Livyatan were supreme predatory machines, the massive 50-ton bodies they inhabited demanded a caloric intake that those chilling waters simply could not provide. They remained marooned at the equator, which had by then transformed into a barren blue wasteland. Ultimately, these kings did not perish in a cataclysmic showdown. They slowly succumbed to the pangs of hunger. Extinction finally claimed Megalodon 2.6 million years ago. Meanwhile, the Livyatan lineage was compelled to downsize, retreating into the sunless abyss to eventually emerge as the docile sperm whale we recognize today. With the throne of the ocean left empty, a rising star, the orca, or killer whale, swiftly staked its claim. These fossils discovered in the Atacama Desert serve as a haunting testament in the natural order. The victor is rarely the most powerful, but rather the one most capable of adapting when the world shifts beneath its feet. Appreciate you joining me until the very end of this presentation. Should you have found this clash intriguing, do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Furthermore, I am curious to hear your thoughts in the comments. If the Livyatan still prowled our oceans today, would humanity ever dare to cast off and set sail? Farewell for now, and I look forward to seeing you in our upcoming installments.